Testing. 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 Testing.
started and then have a couple notes about taxation。我哋就嚟開始啦。先講普通話。我們快開始，在熒幕上會看到中文的翻譯。如果你們看到熒幕需要戴耳機，如果需要廣東話聽廣東話的翻譯，可以去外面拿一個耳機可以聽到廣東話。如果要聽普通話的話，請坐在前面右手邊前面有一個放音機，可以聽到普通話，明不明白？有3種選擇，可以看熒幕看到中文。如果你睇熒光幕可以睇到中文。如果需要廣東話翻譯，耳機喺出邊攞耳機可以聽到廣東話。如果需要聽普通話，就請喺呢邊右手邊前邊聽普通話。So we're going to have a speaker over here on the right-hand side, projecting Mandarin. And for people that need Cantonese, you can get headphones outside so that you can hear. Cantonese interpretation will have interpretation in Chinese on the screen as well, in writing. So we're getting ready to start. Just 会看中文的人都看到中文吗？在荧幕上，喺熒光幕度睇到中文嗎 ？OK。仲有一個 announcement， 如果你哋需要停車證嘅要你哋需要停車嘅話咧，遲啲嚟揾我哋。If you need parking validation, $2 for 3 hours, you can find one of us at the end of the session. So we're about ready to start. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that all the interpretation logistics are in order. Hello, my name is Grace Chan. I am the Executive Director of Coalition for Better Chinese American Community, and we are very happy today to have our first post-pandemic in-person town hall with an elected official. So we're still trying to work out the logistics post-pandemic and with interpretation in multiple languages. So thank you for everyone that are here. And for folks that are on Zoom, there's also interpretation. 如果你们在 Zoom 上，Zoom 的翻译在右手边下面，可以选择广东话和普通话。Okay, we are happy to have a lot of our CBCC board and former board members here. And we also have several of our non-profit partner organizations represented. Lisa Wright is here representing Chinese American Service League. Grace Luke is here representing Project Vision. And I don't see Caroline but she was going to be here for Chinese American Service League. But there are also materials that Lisa and Grace have brought for their organizations that are outside the literature table if you want to check those out. Before we get started, I'm going to invite CBCAC's Assistant Director for Programs, Sarah Tang, to make a few announcements for CBCAC. Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for being here. I just have 3 announcements on behalf of CBCAC. Nate, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. Very exciting, our Asian American Action Day is coming up at the end of April. It's April 30th. We will be chartering a bus from Chinatown to go up to Springfield, down to Springfield. I don't know what direction that is, but we'll be there now. Okay. To lobby with Pan-Asian Voter Empowerment Coalition to advance the causes for different Asian communities. So please join us if you're interested and go see Yonggang. He's the one carrying a big camera. Next slide. CBCAC's annual fundraiser is coming up on June 9th, Monday, June 9th. The theme this year is Standing Together. We're coming together to celebrate the resilience and strength of the Chinese American community. So I hope you'll join us on June 9th. Last but not least, next slide, please. Thank you. Our digital literacy course is coming back with a smartphone class. So for five weeks, we'll be going over different topics how to use your smartphone. So please join us. The first class will be next Monday. Thank you so much. That's all I have. And then I'll pass it back to Grace to go over some lawyer rights information. Thank you. I am just going to go over briefly some know your rights information. As you know, CBCAC and other partner organizations have been working a lot since the new administration to inform everyone who lives in this district, but in fact, everyone who lives in the United States have constitutional rights, and we want to make sure that they know what these rights are, regardless of their immigration status. Next slide, please. So the US Constitution guarantees basic rights for all of the people of the United States, regardless of immigration status. So that is the fundamental point that everyone needs to keep in mind as we go through the next few slides. Next slide. So regardless of your immigration status, you will have these rights, which includes that you can be safe in your own home. And law enforcement cannot enter your home without a warrant signed by a judge. And if you have questions about what a warrant signed by a judge looks like, we can show you in more detail. And you can remain silent if there is law enforcement present, and anything that you can say may be used against you. You can always require an attorney's presence. If you have a Know Your Rights card, and we have some Know Your Rights cards in English and in Chinese that's outside, that you can take some of them and use these as well as share with your friends and family. And then finally, you can always speak with an attorney and be represented by an attorney. So while you say you can remain silent, you can say, I don't have to answer any questions. I would like to wait until my attorney is here. And in immigration court, however, there is no obligation for the court to provide public defense attorneys, so you will need to pay for your own attorney and find your own attorney. Next slide. As we said, you can remain silent. If you are stopped by police, you must identify yourself. They might ask you for your name. You need to give your name, but you don't need to give any other information other than your name. Please note that this does not apply if federal agents are involved instead of local police. You can tell the police if you want to remain silent and to talk to a lawyer, and the police should stop questioning you after that. Next slide. For proactive protection for yourself, do always carry valid documents that show your immigration status. If you have an immigration status, such as a green card or work permit, or work authorization card, employment authorization, EAD card. If you do not have status, do carry documents that show that you have been living in the US for the past 2 years, such as a government issued ID, and it can be a Siddiqui ID, it can be a driver's license, can be any other government issued ID that you have. Do carry work, school, medical records to show that you have been living and working or going to school in the United States, and carry a signed lease, mortgage, or house contract. I know that it may seem like a lot, but these are documentations that will prove that you have been living in the US for at least the past 2 years. And any mail that's received in your home would also would also count as paid. Next slide. Why do you need to carry all these documents? These documents can help you avoid expedited removal and also preserve your right to a court hearing if you or your loved one is detained by ICE. Next slide. Folks may think that this only applies if people are here on some temporary status or without any status, but we have heard of green card holders who are returning to the US from trips abroad, and may get their green cards taken away. And please do not feel pressured to sign anything when you come back to the US. In particular, there's a form I-407, which is a record of abandonment of lawful permanent resident status. In plain English, it means I signed here to give up my green card. Do not sign that form if you do not want to give up your green card. Next slide. We already said, please don't sign off your green card. You have the right to speak with an immigration judge, and only an immigration judge has the authority to speak, to revoke somebody's green card or lawful permanent resident status. And finally, you have the right to review documents in a language that you understand. And the last one is very important. If you are a green card holder, you can only be away from the United States for a limited number of months, generally 6 months. So do not take long trips or you might be questioned. And the next slide has a few know your rights phrases, which I'm just going to show on the screen. Next slide. And these are the phrases that you would need to know in English, Chinese, and they are the same phrases that are on the know your rights cards outside if you want to get any of these cards for your use or for your friends and family. So thank you, and I am going to turn it over to Nicole for the meat of our town hall. You all have been waiting for Nicole to talk about what has been happening in the district, and then later we'll have a chance to ask the questions. We'll have some prepared questions, folks that have submitted their questions online, and then we'll take some audience questions live. This is your opportunity to talk directly to your elected official, and please take advantage of the time to ask the questions that you want to ask. If you are shy about coming up to the mic to ask questions, we also have index cards that you can use to write your questions, and we'll ask them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, and thanks for the Know Your Rights presentation and all of the work that CBCAC has been doing for our community during this really crazy time we're experiencing. So all of this information is really important. I know there's a lot of activity going on to prepare folks in the community to help observe when these instances happen. I do think it's not a matter of if, but when. You know, thankfully, since we're on the topic, we've not had any confirmed cases where ICE has detained or picked people up for deportation in the 11th ward. I'm gonna knock on all the wood around me. But again, my sense of it is that it's not a matter of if but when. So it behooves us to be prepared. Most of my slides are really gonna be really focused on infrastructure because it's construction season. And infrastructure sounds like a really boring thing. But I really want to emphasize the role that infrastructure plays in the vitality and safety of our community. Can you hear us? Okay. Sorry, you're good. I'll look up over here. If you guys need me to slow down or stop, just wave at me. As I said, infrastructure is really important to the vitality and well-being of the community and public safety. So what do I mean by infrastructure? I mean the roads under your feet, the sidewalk that we walk on, the lights that are overhead, the trash can. No, trash cans is streets and sands, but again, that's not physically bolted down to the ground. But the streets, the sidewalks, medians that we have, the traffic signals, the street signs, those are all infrastructure. And just to give you a little bit of context, every single ward gets what's called menu money. We get $1.5 million in menu money, regardless of the size of your ward. So you can imagine, the downtown wards are very dense, so they've got a lot more people. Our wards are drawn by population. So we've got about 53,000 people in our ward. We go as far north as 16th Street, as far south as 45th Street, to the east, Clark Street, LaSalle Street, and to the west, we go all the way to Damon. So we have a pretty large ward, not as big as some of my other colleagues, but pretty big nonetheless. And $1.5 million does not go very far. That is not the only money that's spent in the ward. The city also has what's called a capital improvement plan. You may have seen recently that the city council passed a bond authorization to issue $830 million, up to $830 million in bonds. To cover infrastructure, and water projects, so infrastructure separate from the Department of Water Management. So just to give you that little bit of context, I'm gonna be talking about some of the things that I think I've heard from residents, is of concern. So these traffic studies are one of the tools that we have, to use with CDOT in order to figure out what best, is a solution for the issues that we're having. So you see old Chinatown and new Chinatown. We had to split it up into two because putting it into one seemed to cover a little too much. So for old Chinatown, we're talking about Cermak Road going south. And of biggest concern in this traffic study in particular is Stewart and Princeton. So if you're familiar with Stewart and Princeton, if you've ever driven on Princeton, if you made the left turn from Cermak or Archer onto Princeton, you know that you might end up waiting there a little bit to get through the street. It's a very narrow street. There's not supposed to be parking on both sides all the way down from Cermak to 24th Place. But consistently, people like to park and hang out there. Now there's a Starbucks there as well, so people like to stop there, pick up their coffee. So when it's two-way traffic, north and south, and it's very problematic. You're a smart parker, you see that the mirrors are pulled in because lots of mirrors get taken out. And on Stewart, we have it's two-way traffic, but only parking on one side because we've got the rail tracks on the other, next to the viaduct. So what I asked them to take a look at is whether or not there's a case to be made to convert those into one-way streets. And to do diagonal parking to preserve parking, but also create safer streets for cars, for pedestrians, and for cyclists. I know today Stewart is one of those thoroughfares that a lot of folks use on their bikes because it's a little calmer over there. I'm not trying to take that away, I'm just trying to create safer and calmer streets throughout. You know, in Chinatown in general, speeding is not the issue here in Chinatown. It is really the volume of traffic that we have, parking and pedestrians. We're here on Wednesday. Tomorrow night, if the weather's like this, you know it's gonna be packed on Wentworth, it's gonna be packed in Chinatown Square, which means a lot of people driving around, walking around, and we want the streets to be as safe as possible for that. So this traffic study that we commissioned essentially covers Stewart, Princeton, and Wentworth from Cermak south to 24th Place. That's what we're talking about right now. So we'll see when that comes back. And generally what happens is traffic engineers will go and look at all of these intersections. When traffic studies are done in general, they'll look at one particular intersection. We've asked them to do a broader study because what we do in one might just push traffic to another block. And really we need to take a more holistic view of this, which is why we're doing these broader traffic studies. Now, new Chinatown, Chinatown Square. Also very traffic ridden. Does anybody over here live in Chinatown Square? Anybody? Couple people? Were you my residential parking people maybe? That's okay. We're still gonna talk about it. It's not a lost subject, right? I know that part of the challenge over there is just the volume of cars that are parked back there between Kingtown Park and Chinatown Square and Ubers and food delivery people. If you live on China Place, I'm sorry. Really problematic there, but also as we get around to Tan Court and like some of those other streets and back, I've asked CDOT to take a look at what we can do potentially if the street's wide enough to create sort of maybe one side of diagonal parking because parking is so challenging in general. I'm trying to find ways to get more parking and potentially to create a series of one-way streets. I don't know if this is what they're gonna recommend, but you know, if we can funnel traffic through, like force it in one direction, I think that will solve a lot of problems because people who don't know the neighborhood they're gonna circle around all the time trying to figure out where to go to find parking spaces. And if we make things a little bit more one way, we can direct traffic flow potentially a little bit better. So that's what I've asked them to take a look at. I think that, you know, as Chinatown continues to grow and thrive, which we wanted to do, that naturally means, more people in the ward, whether that's on cars, on bicycles, or, you know, coming in on public transportation or walking. Just a little fun fact for you, the Divvy station that is, right from the parking lot on Cermak and Wentworth. Last year, it had 40,000 trips. That's what these divvy stations are bringing into the neighborhood. So we want to continue to see folks use the divvy bikes to connect to different destinations. We love being a great destination for Chicagoans as well as any visitors that are coming in. So we can go on to the next slide. Those are studies that we have going on. So we're going to find out what they say a little bit later with their recommendations. Now, we have some upcoming projects. Resurfacing all of Wentworth Avenue, from Cermak to 24th Place. I believe that's where we're going, 24th Street. It's basically the entire length of Wentworth Avenue will be repaved. And we're also getting, some updated lights. So recently we changed out the light fixtures so that they weren't as yellow. And you know, the old lights just didn't really brighten up the street. The businesses have changed a lot in Chinatown as well. You know, back in my day when I was younger, there were so many neon signs, you really didn't have to worry about streetlights lighting up the street. But streetlights and safety go hand in hand. We gotta make sure that we've got bright enough lights. And probably in the last 3 months, the light bulbs have been changed in those light fixtures, and they're clear glass now, not fogged. So the lights are actually shining so bright that you can see across the street, because we only have streetlights on one side of the street. So these are all part of the city's capital improvement program. So that is not coming out of the menu. So we're getting some benefits from the capital improvement program. I don't have dollar values on that yet, but once we get them, we'll be happy to share them. And we get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of capital projects that come into the ward as well. I'm just giving you examples from Chinatown. We can go on to the next slide. Oh, the timing for that, sorry, before I go. The timing for this is the summer. They're trying to wait till school is out. As you know, we've got 2 elementary schools that sort of dump out onto Wentworth, 23rd Street and 23rd Place. So as much as possible, we're gonna ask them to sort of thread the needle of ending, doing it after the school year, but before the Project Vision 5K, which we're hoping will be on the 19th of July, and then the Chinatown Summer Fair, which is, you know, our largest event here in the community, July 26th and 25th and 26th? 26th and 27th. So we're hoping that they will be able to complete all that construction within that time frame. And again, as soon as we have confirmed dates, the asphalt plants are just opening now, so CDOT is scheduling. So as soon as we get schedules, we will publish that in the newsletter. I encourage all of you, if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, please do. It comes out weekly and we share all of this information. We try to give folks as much lead time as possible when it comes to these big projects that are going to disrupt traffic. Okay, next slide, please. So Archer and Canal. Isn't it great that we have a DMV from the Secretary of State? Isn't it great now that you don't see lines around the corner?
Yeah.
It's pretty scary there for a while. Especially, I mean, I'm gonna dip around a little bit here, but you mentioned a lot of the reason that people were lined up was this deadline for real ID. And just for the record, you don't need real ID to prove your citizenship. And all of the things that Grace mentioned in her presentation will suffice for that. You need a real ID if you don't have a passport and you're going to travel by May 7th. So please don't feel like you have to rush to get that done. We have moved, the Secretary of State has moved to appointment only at that location because it was getting to be very dangerous for people to be standing out there. In fact, since the location has opened, there's been at least 1 or 2 accidents in that intersection. One where a vehicle went and hit the corner of that building. Had there been a longer line, individual pedestrians or people waiting in line would have been at risk of getting hit. So it's been a real concern for us since they moved in, especially with the number of people that they have waiting in line. That's calmed down a bit, but traffic in that area has continued to be problematic. We've got a couple of restaurants that are over there. We get food deliveries, people who pull over. That is a no stopping, standing, or parking zone, yet people are still there. So we're trying to work with the police to get a little bit more enforcement, to make sure that people aren't always just sitting around there. It's a little difficult, resource wise to constantly have that monitored. And part of the challenge right now is that right now it's 2 lanes in each direction, 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south. And when someone's parked in that right-hand lane, it takes, I mean, it just messes up the traffic all the way back. So this is part of the challenge that we gave to CDOT. I commissioned a traffic study last year, in fact, and they've come back with some suggestions that I've signed off on. So essentially what's happening right now, did we get the graphic in? What's on the next slide? Yeah. Perfect. So this is a little bit of a graphic of the work that's planned. Essentially what's gonna happen, all the work's gonna be on Canal Street. So I wish I had a pointer, but let me just get a, I need to stay right there. Let me go back. Picture the DMV, that is Canal Street. As you're going south, right now there is a little bit of a raised concrete median. We're gonna grind that down and we're gonna create 3 lanes instead of 2. There will be a left turn lane, there will be a right turn lane and a straight lane in the middle. So we're gonna create a 3rd lane essentially to ease the traffic flow there. That way, if you're in the right lane, you're turning right. You're in the left lane, you're turning left. We'll get to the arrow piece of this later. I didn't think that's actually part of this plan just yet, but we'll get to that. And then there will be 1 lane going straight. So in the in the northbound lanes, you're gonna get the same thing. 3 lanes, a right turn, a straight and a left turn, with a cul-de-sac at 23rd Street. So currently that is a street that allows you to go through, eastbound towards, Princeton, Stewart, Wentworth. We're gonna close that, with a cul-de-sac. And the reason we decided to do that is it's a funny intersection and, with lots of car accidents. People don't really know how to navigate that. We put up a flashing stop, which I think has helped to stop people there so that they are stopping. But to make a right turn, to make a left turn, if you have to make a right turn onto Canal, but you want to get in the left lane, that's another challenge there. The 44 bus turns from Archer back onto Canal to go south there as well. So we're trying to address all of these. I think in the period that CDOT looked at this intersection, there were 20 documented car accidents in this intersection. So it needed some calming measures. So that's what we're doing. We don't quite have timing on any of this yet, but it will happen this year. It is it's slated. I've already signed off on this. I think CDOT needs to just take a look at the ramp that kind of goes up towards the rail tracks. There's essentially a self-made community garden there now. I don't think anybody uses it, but I don't know who owns the right of way there, and how that will impact. But the idea is that no traffic will be allowed to, go into Chinatown from 23rd Street anymore. You'll have to take Archer. So as you're going, that would be westbound, you'll have to pick Princeton, or you'll have to go to 23rd Place, which is really, it's a great viaduct. It's nice and wide. We've got plenty of space. So that's where we're gonna be moving traffic to. And hopefully this will, help traffic flow a lot better. It'll be safer for both pedestrians and I would say cyclists too, because there's going to be more space created on the road. And then there's not the race to, cut in front of somebody to go straight in either direction or they're south on Canal Street. So that is the big plan, and that's probably the biggest infrastructure improvement that's been made in Chinatown in some time. Because we have the volume of people that we have here, it's really important, especially with seniors. We want to create as many safe walking places as we can. So this is part and parcel part of that. Let's go on to the next slide. Some of you may have heard or may not have that I've proposed a zoning map amendment. And this, different than what I've done in other places in the ward, is actually a move to down zone. So along the Archer and Canal corridor, so on Canal Street from Archer to 24th Place, it's really kind of a mixed bag of zoning because there was manufacturing at some point, there's residential mixed in. I'm trying to create some conformity, which means I'm trying to get all of the creative district essentially, with similar zoning. And I have another concern, just as somebody also that lives in this community, with the number of massage establishments that we have in the ward, from 20 on Canal Street, from 23rd Place to just 1 block to 24th Street. there are, who can guess? How many massage establishments are there? One? Two? Am I missing one? Where's the fifth one? I can only count four. There's four. There's four. You can go to the moon, you can go to the earth. There's, there are two right next to each other. So basically 3 on Canal inside of the block and then 1 on 24th Street next to the karaoke bar. Those buildings are all zone C, zoning, commercial, and I don't want to give you a whole lesson in zoning, but basically with the C zone or anything higher than a B3, massage parlors are allowed by right. I'm looking to change that, so that we can manage the number of any new ones that come around. I think we have too many, and I, you know, it doesn't necessarily portray the best, reputation, for what you can get in Chinatown. I'll just leave that at that. So, you know, and I don't take it lightly that this has an impact on property owners. You know, I've had, additional meetings with property owners who've expressed their concerns about, devaluing their properties because there's fewer uses. The reality is that many of these retail spaces that they get with the C zone, and the only thing that they could put in it was a massage parlor. I think we need to think about this differently, and if we create shopping districts, with different uses, we may be able to promote more of, I don't know, law offices, dental offices, something like that, that can operate within some of these retail spaces. We also have residential buildings that were, zone C, like a condo building. This all came up because there was an application for a commercial kitchen inside of a condo building. I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. That you would have a commercial kitchen inside of a condo building. So what I've been doing in and around the board, and not just here in Chinatown, is really looking at, the zoning that exists where it makes sense to suggest a map amendment to create more sort of contiguous, districts. That's what I'm doing. So in Bridgeport, I've done upzoning, frankly, because a lot of the properties were downzoned for whatever reason, to single family residential. And if you own a commercial property, you really can't put anybody new into it to do anything without the right zoning or without the right opportunity. So I'm still working on a potential other solution with zoning to address my particular interest in curbing the number of massage parlors that are and massage establishments that are in the ward. So I haven't made a final decision on that. I'm bringing it up because it's happening. So if you've got a concern about that, if you got a question, I'm happy to take questions later. I'm happy to meet with you too. This is not your only opportunity to answer a question. I see many people in this room who come to my office to talk to me. But let's go to the next slide. You can keep going. No, you're going the wrong way. Here we go. Participatory budget. So we've been talking a lot about infrastructure, and different wards have what's called participatory budgeting, and the 11th ward has participatory budgeting too. This is where we allocate a certain amount of our menu budget for the community, a committee that, you know, people volunteer for, to select particular projects and then put that up for a vote to the community. Zoe Chan from my staff manages that program. If you're interested in joining the committee, please reach out to us. You can email us at ward11@cityofchicago.org. We had some great meetings last year. We learned a lot. This will be the first full year that we'll have some more projects for folks to vote on. And with that, I'll take questions. Stay up here? Yes.
Yeah. The first question is somebody who already submitted a question, and it is about rights to free speech. So whoever the person is that was prepared to ask the question, please come up and ask the question that you have written online. Thank you. And if you want to give your name, leave it there. Okay.
Emmett Metz, here resident and a worker in notice in Bridgeport. In recent weeks, the Trump administration has targeted students and immigrants for standing up for Palestine and criticizing America's policy providing weapons of war to the state of Israel. You recently supported the attempt to remove Harper from the Chicago Cultural Center that is critical of the same policy. Having had time to reflect and hear the concerns from many members of your community, do you still believe that anti-war artwork should be removed from the cultural center or other public institutions? Thank you.
Drew, nice to see you. Thank you for the question. And thanks for the time that we spent together having this conversation. Actually, Drew brought some artists as well as the curator from that exhibit to my office a few weeks ago to talk about my signing that letter. You know, I'm happy to address that. I in support of and at the request of really my colleague who is the only Jewish member of the city council, as the only Chinese American representative on the council, representation is important. I know that Alderman Silverstein doesn't represent every single Jewish voice that's out there. She is the individual that is on the council representing her community. And we needed to be supportive of each other in that way. I think that when you have representatives on the council, that there should be consultation, where we can leverage people that we have, on the council as subject matter experts. I can give you an example that I've shared before too. There was an exhibit by the Chicago last year that I heard from community members about. It was a pro-Hong Kong, democracy, like the cartoon exhibit. And it raised a lot of heckles among people on the conversation. I did not ask for that exhibit to be removed. What I did do was I reached out to the Chicago Public Library to flag for that in my community. It would have been great to have a heads up about this so that I could have helped prepare them for the reaction from different people in the community, because we have many people in our community who are very connected to their roots and their families and businesses in China and in Hong Kong, frankly, and in Taiwan. So it's a rather broad issue in our community, and I think it would be worth just having a heads up to understand where the opportunity might have been to actually have a conversation and create opportunities for people to connect and talk about challenges that, you know, other folks are facing in other parts of the world that we definitely have connections to. You know, I signed my name to the letter. I did not ask to be removed. We had a hearing about the process that sort of DCase has set up for controversial type exhibits like that. And, you know, for me, what was really important was that there actually be an opportunity for voices to be heard. I never want to question someone's lived experience, and, you know, I heard from many people that reached out to my office. In fact, that the overwhelming majority of the people that I heard from prior to signing that letter were asking me to ask the city to have that exhibit removed. And not wanting to question somebody else's experience, I did go ahead and support, and I signed that letter. I think moving to the sort of more current subject of, you know, the arrests that have been made, I think protecting free speech is fundamental in this country, and I support that wholly. The exhibit in question was in a public space, and I think because it was in a public space, folks felt, and I included, to make sure that we were sensitive to the various communities that were involved and the way they were feeling. The messages that I was getting was that they were feeling very threatened. I've since, to be fair, met with people like Drew and artists, other artists and the curator, to come in and talk to me, and I've met with other Jewish organizations as well. You know, it was a great learning experience for me, and I've learned there's a bigger network of people that I can go to consult, to ask for, you know, more opinions and views. As we know, there's views that vary in every single community. I just gave you one about the challenges that our own community is connected to from a geopolitical perspective. So, you know, I think that the rights of free speech should absolutely be protected. I don't support the Trump administration detaining and arresting people who have legal rights to be in this country. If you're here studying, you, as Grace shared with everybody, you have constitutional rights here. Because if you're from another country and you're here, just because you don't have a green card doesn't mean that you can't speak your mind. This is the United States of America. I hope that answers your question.
We'll move on to the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, so just, so you all know, we've received a large number of questions, so we, picked a few that, Nicole will answer right here. And there will be other ones that we will submit to her in writing so that she can, answer after today's meeting.
And I'll try to keep my answers more brief to get more of these questions.
The next question, I'm gonna ask the youth, I think Leo, are you the designated, person to ask question on behalf of? Are you? Yes. I'm Leo, I'm part of original, our students are 14. And I wanted to ask, are there any internship opportunities available through the 11th Ward office or any city government departments for college students?
Great question, Leo, and thanks for the question. We definitely have opportunities for internships with the 11th Ward office, and in fact, we had two from Maha last year. We had one through the McFelt organization as well. We're definitely open to more. There are several different programs. Maha funded the two interns that we had, and McFelt funded the other. I probably have enough funds to fund at least one intern myself on my own budget. I would say apply through also one summer Chicago if you haven't already applied for your high school student, because that will connect you to opportunities as well. The McFA Challenge is another one that will fund intern positions at all the Manning offices, as well as some of the city departments.
Thank you. We'll do one more prepared question and then we'll have a time for folks to ask their own questions. So if you have a question that you want to ask, please come up and line up next to one of these mics. The next question we're going to ask Sarah to ask on behalf of somebody who submitted online.
So in order to build more affordable housing in a faster way, how can we reduce regulatory burden in order to do that?
Man, if I had that answer, I think I'd be doing something else for a living. You know, we have a really big challenge with affordable housing. And when I say affordable, I don't mean low income housing. I mean like a working class person making like an $80,000 a year salary, can afford to rent in this community. And we have families that need affordable housing. We have seniors that are on 10-year-long waiting lists. I think that the regulatory burden is a little bit of a misnomer, because I think that there's more than just regulatory challenges. There are a lot of rules around the development of affordable housing. I don't know all of the ins and outs of, like, from a regulatory perspective, all of the boxes that need to be ticked. I just know that there are a lot of them. But also it's very expensive. In fact, I sit on the Finance Committee and Economic Development Committee of the City of Chicago, and we approve affordable housing projects. And I will tell you, it blows my mind that it costs so much. We approved recently a project that was 22 units in an existing building, and it was an adaptive reuse. And the total came out to nearly $900,000 a unit. I'm still waiting for someone to totally explain how that makes any sense. And a lot of that is tax credits from different, different government entities. And it's also, the cost of labor, the cost of materials. And we pay prevailing wage here, where Chicago is a union city, so we're paying our workers fair wages. We're not kind of doing this on the backs of people who, don't have union jobs and aren't represented. So I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. I think that the city has been doing work over the years to reduce the amount of red tape, whether that's for affordable housing or just development in general. Housing stock in Chicago is down. We're challenged with this, right? We need more places for people to live. Part of this happened during the pandemic. So We are doing many things. In fact, the administration has a proposal that I just got a briefing on today called green social housing. So the question of affordable housing is something that is at the forefront of many people's minds. I'm looking for places in the ward, throughout the ward where we have space. Obviously, we don't have a whole lot of land here in Chinatown. I'll give you one example, the Happy Land, where it was located previously in Wentworth, right around 24th, between 23rd and 24th, 23rd Place and 24th Street. That was a really old building that had fallen really into some disrepair. The apartments weren't really livable. I think there were 4 units on top. We approved a zoning change so that the new owner can build a 4-story restaurant with 2 more stories of apartments on top. So we're gaining actually 4 additional apartments that we wouldn't have had. His original plan didn't have any residential. So I'm really glad that instead of having 0 residential, we got 8 apartments coming. The way that we have to go in Chinatown is up. We are in a transit-oriented development district. We are within a half mile of high-volume transit to the red line. The idea being that people don't have as many cars when you live this close to transit, so there are fewer parking requirements. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, if you have questions, please line up by the mics. If you are shy about asking questions, you can raise your hand for an index card and write down the questions so somebody else can ask for you. I see Jacob. Are you ready to ask the questions? Or,
If you'd like to go first, you can.
okay, Mrs. Wong first.
Yeah, I'll actually get from the microphone, right?
你上嚟講，我幫你得，一起到嘅。咁兩輪上嚟咧就講啲其他人聽唔到。
剛才我哋聽到區長講我哋唐街將來有好多新嘅家嘅新嘅建設，使到我哋唐街更加興旺。俾我哋喺度住咗幾十年嘅華僑咧，有更好嘅享受。咁好多謝區長對我哋嘅關懷。咁但係我哋提出我哋喺唐街咁長時間幾廿年啦，一直以嚟咧都感覺到而家嘅唐街係好乾淨嘅，好受人歡迎嘅。但係而家我哋仲有一個令我哋仲有難以希望能夠解決就係唐街嗰啲橋窿啊，啲橋窿真係好垃圾。從來都唔見到有人，即係好少啦。我哋見到有人打掃過，咁佢又邋遢，有時又覺得唔安全，使到我哋住喺呢度咧都有啲擔心。咁我覺得美活街能夠搞得咁靚，喺嗰度再搞得更乾淨、更精緻，俾我哋所有嘅唐人咧享受得更加好。
Thank you. So let me translate for folks that are in the room. So Mrs. Huang said that, thank you so much to the alderman for having all these construction projects and improving facilities and infrastructure. And this is great for Chinatown. She has lived here for decades and we have not seen Chinatown as clean as we have today. And so we're very happy about the cleanliness in general, except for under the viaducts. It's generally, it's generally not really clean and dark and unwelcoming. So we can also improve the viaducts. That will make the neighborhood even better. So she's asking the alderwoman about plans for improving the viaducts.
So thank you for the question, Mrs. Wong. And I'll let you guys translate the answer to this. It's really hard to neighborhood clean. We know, and I know, because I live in the neighborhood, and my staff can tell you, I complain to my staff about how dirty it is in the viaducts. And we get people littering out of their cars, which we can't control, obviously. So I'll start with, we need individuals to be responsible and not litter anywhere, whether that's in a viaduct or on the street. We have a nice gentleman that's funded through, I think, either the Chamber or the Parking Corporation, who every day walks up and down Wentworth, sweeping up the street. We don't have that necessarily for the viaducts, but we do have crews that we get access to. So the viaducts are a challenge, not just here in Chinatown, but throughout the ward, because I have many viaducts, not just in Chinatown, and they all have the same problem. People throw trash out their window because they think, oh, I'm in a tunnel. Nobody can see me and they throw stuff out, but you know what? It all collects there. For those of us that have to drive through, walk through, bike through every day, we see all of this mess. So we have been using the labor resources that we have to focus on for getting a rotation done. But it's very difficult to keep up. So just know that we are looking at those constantly. And we're trying to get any available resources that we have in there. Now that we're into the spring street sweeping season, the viaduct should look a lot better because street sweepers will be coming out on a more periodic basis. You wanna?
I think it's fine.
Oh, okay.
So anything is in English is being translated. Okay, so I think, yeah, so I think, Jacob, Mullen.
Good evening. Thank you for presenting. Really exciting what's going on here in Chinatown. And a couple questions that I have is with the project on Wentworth Avenue, I'm wondering if sidewalk ramps will be upgraded to be ADA compliant. And one reason I'm particularly passionate about this topic is because I know that Quaytech is home to disability ministry. And I've seen people from the disability ministry at events at the Chinese Christian Union Church as well. And so, yeah, that's one question I have. And another question I have as well is with Bridgeport also being part of the ward with a growing number of Chinese restaurants along Holston Street. Is there a way we can like improve publicity for these particular restaurants that they can get the attention that restaurants along, say, the old Chinatown, Wentworth Avenue, and then new Chinatown to Chinatown Square can have?
Great, thanks for the questions, Jacob. To answer your first question, if CDOT's gonna be, working on any part of, the streets here, redoing ADA ramps, if they don't already exist, will be included in that. We'll make sure, we can address that in the newsletter to give you a more definite answer. Sharon from my staff is in charge of, infrastructure, so we'll make sure we give you a definitive answer on that. But in general, if CDOT's gonna be doing work on concrete or the street, then there is an opportunity to restore something to include an ADA compliant ramp, they're doing. As far as how we draw more attention to the growing number of Chinese establishments and Asian offerings there are further south into the ward, there's an organization that's actually done a map of Chinatown and into Bridgeport with various restaurants and stuff. That's one way that that's being done. I work very closely with the Greater Bridgeport South Loop Chamber of Commerce. So also, trying to get that chamber to work with the Chinatown Chamber to see what we can do to create a little bit more connectivity. I know that the Chinatown Chamber is very keen on doing that. We've had discussions about different ways that might be that might be established somehow. We don't have any solid plans at this point that we could share with you, but the conversation is happening, I assure you. Thanks for the question.
So do we have other audience members that want to ask a question? Eric, Chen, and then anyone.
I don't think okay.
You're just there, you were enunciating, that's great.
Oh, okay, so this is a question I'm asking on the behalf of a resident who asked me to, give a question on their behalf. Their name is Amy, and they were asking, if the 11th ward has any resources or any plans, that would be possible to initiate to encourage or educate Chinatown landlords to install security cameras over 24th Street, 23rd Street, 23rd Place, 22nd Street, and 22nd Place. And this is because they said that there have been like thieves that have been caught in these places, but that there wasn't enough evidence to convict. And they thought that adding more security cameras would help with that. And so they were asking if there could be any programs to educate landowners to encourage them to put security cameras up.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thank you for asking that on behalf of Amy. So we're really fortunate in Chinatown to have a really great and active Chinatown neighborhood watch group that has been around for a couple of decades at this point. I see our folks from the CAPS team from the 9th district. I know they will tell you how instrumental the neighborhood watch has been in helping to solve crimes here in Chinatown. including a couple of unfortunately murders that took place in the community. And that's due in large part to the work that they've done over the years with property owners, in fact, to get access to their cameras, because they're able to, on a volunteer basis, very quickly, after a crime's been committed, to go back to the video and pull video footage to help the Chicago Police Department identify when they can get a license plate, or if they can get a clear look at somebody, or if they have footage actually from, someone's entering or exiting. But there's not enough. So the Neighborhood Watch, in conjunction, I think, with the Chinatown Security Foundation, got a state grant. They got $300,000 to install more cameras in Chinatown and further south into Bridgeport. So there is work that's currently being done to install cameras. And this would not be at any expense for the equipment or for the installation, but they would still need to be able to connect to power and to internet. So there are folks that are going around to businesses. I'm going to be joining them. They've got some targeted locations to create more connectivity in the network, and really a lot of the streets that you've already mentioned. So there's definitely work going on to improve our connectivity with cameras here in the city.
Okay, thank you all.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question, Eric. Mr. Lowe.
Thank you so much for your update, especially on the infrastructure issues. My question actually is regarding 3 weeks ago, the mayor's office in Department asked all of the city contracts to give them 3% of all of their contracts with the city. Was, which was affecting a number of businesses, specifically small businesses, minority businesses that are certified by the city of Chicago, instead of women businesses that are certified. Can you tell us a little bit about, number one, whether you were informed prior to this coming out, and number two, what was your position on that?
I think that I got a copy of the letter from an Asian-owned, woman-owned business in the community. In fact, I was pretty surprised by it. I wasn't aware that it was going out. Older people were not given a heads up that the letter was going out. We've since gotten communication from the chief procurement officer that this was something that was a continuation of something that was budgeted for. They budgeted for a 3% decrease. I wasn't aware that part of how they were going to get to that was to go back to people who we had already signed agreements with, that we made promises to for work to ask for a breakdown. I don't agree with it. I don't think that's the way to do things. We can look at new contracts to see if we can get lower pricing on anything new. But the contracts that we've signed are promises that we've made to business owners, small business owners, minority business owners, who could really ill afford to give up 3% on a contract with the city. Could go on for a little while, Ernie, about how I feel like this is a pretty unfair thing to ask of contractors. These are people that are creating jobs in their communities. 3% can mean a couple of bodies on a job. And frankly, these things were budgeted for already. Well, we need to be looking at, we do need to reduce our costs in the city. We all need to take a look at where we can create efficiencies, and we're gonna have to make hard decisions coming up here. There's no two ways about that. The deficit, we know, is already projected to be higher than the previous year, not to mention the conversation about CTU and CPS and this pension payment. That all that's doing is adding. So there's gonna come a time where we've got to make some hard decisions. I don't think that should be done on the backs of minority women-owned businesses who have contracts existing for work that they've been delivering, in some cases have delivered, haven't got paid yet. I don't think that's fair.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think we'll go back to the questions that were already submitted first. I think Yonggang is next with the question that was submitted online.
Sorry about this question online. We have heard a lot about CPS budget and disagreements with the city. So can you explain what's going on now?
Yonggang, thank you for the question. Yeah, we've heard a lot about the CPS budget and disagreements with the city. And so essentially what's going on right now is that the city of Chicago is obligated by state law to make the pension payment for all city employees, including the non-teaching positions and CPS. So by state law, the city of Chicago is obligated to do that. I think it was during the Lightfoot administration, when there was an agreement to move forward with a fully elected school board, the mayor's office and CPS came to an agreement that CPS, in order to begin to disentangle itself from the finances of the city, would begin to make pension payments. Would make partial payments and ramping up to them taking over all of the responsibility for the pensionable employees that were not teachers of CPS. And they were making those payments. The city was paying it upfront and then getting reimbursed by Chicago Public Schools. That was the understanding for this year. So the city has an expectation that $175 million be paid back to the city to close the year. That deadline is March 31st. And that is where that stands right now. You've seen in the news too, that CPS is in contract negotiations with the Chicago Teachers Union, as well as for the first time, the Chicago Principals Union as well. CPS doesn't necessarily have a way to raise revenue like the city does. So we are at a bit of a standoff at this point, or an impasse. Unfortunately, all of us as taxpayers are caught up in this. There are no good answers, folks, to this challenge. At this point, the city, CPS, CTA, the state, if you're following the news at all, you know, are all facing some sort of fiscal cliff. And we have not raised the property tax levy in the city of Chicago in the last 3 budget cycles. To be clear, I didn't vote for the budget this year because I didn't think it did enough to prepare us for what was coming. We need to look very hard, as I mentioned earlier, at how we're running the city and how we're spending taxpayer dollars. And again, there are no easy answers. If you lay people off, you still have a pension problem. The way pensions work is like Social Security. We're paying pensions today. I'm paying into pensions for people who are collecting them. So the fewer employees we actually have, the worse off we are, because we don't have as many people paying into the pension system. So there are no easy answers. And I think now is the time when, frankly, all of us, mayor's office, the older people, commissioners, state representatives, all of us in government need to be sitting together and looking at how interconnected all of us are, instead of doing all this finger pointing at each other. Finger pointing doesn't get us anywhere. Sitting down at a table, being honest with each other about what our situation is and really what it's going to take to not tax our way out of this, because I don't think that we can just tax our way out. To be sure, I think that there will be. I think it's not realistic to think that there won't be some sort of tax increase. Prices go up every year. We pay people salary increases, and if we don't increase revenue coming in, we get ourselves into these holes. The budget was passed this last year with a lot of ticky-tack taxes that are, frankly, are behavior-based. They're not necessarily reliable at the end of the day. We need real solutions, and I don't think we get there if we don't sit down and roll up our sleeves and do the hard work.
Thank you. This is the last opportunity for you to come up with at the mic with questions, but I think we have Wanya has a question that's already prepared from folks that have this as submission. So go ahead. No. Let Wanya ask a question first from the prepared questions, and then folks can line up.
CBCC is starting a tree ambassador program to request tree planting in Latvia cities through the Zero app. When we're talking to the community members, many of them said they already request the tree trimming or the broken sidewalks, street lights, or graffiti using Zero app, but haven't heard any back or seen any action? How can we make sure this service actually went down?
Okay, thank you for the question. Just to make sure I got all of that. You've got a new tree program, you're planting, as you're talking to people, they're reporting to you that they've reported tree limbs that need to be trimmed, broken sidewalks, streetlights or graffiti. Is everybody putting these requests into 311? Are they calling the ward office? Do you know? 311?
I think for them, we just talk to them to like using search one app to report those questions, is that they use it but never heard or see any actions.
Okay, got it. Okay. So I just want to make sure I understood. So for the people in the back, you didn't hear, the challenge right now is that the people are putting requests in the 311 and they're not seeing any action or getting any response. So thank you for using the 311 app. That's great. I will ask you to take one extra step too, is to go ahead and call our office, call or email our office with the service request that you put in. And then we can follow it from there. I know it's an extra step, but it does seem to, help when we can take a look and see what we can do to get more urgency around resolving these issues. I will say with tree trimming, I want to level set everybody's expectations around that. Tree trimming has gone to what's called a grid system. So the city is divided up into many grids. I think we probably have like 50 of them in the 11th ward. And the forestry department, when they come into a grid, is supposed to trim every single tree in the grid so that it will not need to be trimmed again for 5 years. The old system where it was, you call in for a tree trim request and they send a team out, was not efficient at all. In fact, I think, I don't have the actual statistics for you, but we have trimmed tens of thousands more trees this year than the previous year because of this grid system. So it will take us coming out, when we hit your grid. The only time that, the forestry department will come out outside of a grid is if there is an emergency. Tree branch is now leaning on your roof or window. That's something that is deemed an emergency. Call that into 311 or call our ward office so that we can call forestry to get somebody out to inspect the tree and then to make the determination as to how to get the limbs down. As far as streetlights and broken sidewalks go, again, give us those 311 requests, or just call the office directly so that we can put the request in, then we can follow up with people directly. So 311 in the app, if you fill out your name and your information, because some of those things can be done anonymously. So if people don't include a name and an email address, there's no way to hear back about what the resolution was or what the issue was for not closing that out. So, while it is possible for you to do this anonymously, you're really not going to get any feedback on it. And we won't necessarily know that you did it. Graffiti gets taken down pretty quickly. We feel really good about the graffiti blasting team that comes through. I know that it pops up and it's been popping up a lot all over the ward in Chinatown, Bridgeport. It's getting warmer out. People do this. They like to do it on a Thursday or Friday night because, the graffiti teams have the weekends off. So they sit there all weekend. I would say definitely call our office. If they call you at CBCAC and we've got an open line of communication, you can give that to us. And we'll try to get somebody out within, a day or two to take that down.
Thank you. Mrs. Huang and then Timmy.
李區長，我個人見到你，係從我哋選你到而家咧，我哋睇到咧，李區長真係喺我哋個區嗰度咧做咗好多嘢嘅，就好似我自己門前嘅嗰條路咧，我哋喺度住咗25年啦，但係一直都冇整過，都係凹凹凸凸嘅，嬌立我哋喺嬌立，而家咧整到好靚。咁同埋咧，人行道咧，亦都係即係好靚啊，係啦。咁咧就仲有我哋附近啲公園啊，啲衞生咧都係做得好好。另外咧仲有警察嗰方面咧，又多咗好多講中文嘅警察。咁我哋大家都睇到咧，唐人街的確喺李區長做咗區長之後咧。
大嘅嗰啲咩殺人案啊，嗰啲咧的確係減少咗好多。當然啦，我哋個社區仲係有好多即係危及到大家安全嘅嘢嘅，但係我哋睇到佢嘅進步，即係就好多謝啊李區長同埋李區長辦公室嘅，我而家見到Andy 喺度，係啦仲有呢位係啦Zoe係啦。仲有嗰個女士，我哋好多時咧帶啲居民咧去到李區長辦公室咧，佢哋都係好熱情咁樣接待我哋，亦都解釋我哋有大有細嘅問題，能夠幫助我哋嘅都幫助，所以喺呢度代表我哋居民咧好多謝李區長，係啦，同埋李區長辦公室嘅員工，係啦。咁今日我而家想代表我哋長者就問一啲問題。你睇到李區長，我哋好多長者喺度參加，每一次我哋有咩會議咧，長者都係好積極參加嘅。咁佢哋今日想問嘅問題咧，就係有幾個問題。第一，不過唔知呢啲問題係屬唔屬於你嘅管轄，如果唔係咧，都希望你開議會嗰時咧，都幫我哋提一下咯。而家嗰個24路公共汽車同埋44路係有一啲問題嘅，特別24路咧係橫跨好多個老人大廈，喺9街啦，有個鐵屋嘅老人大廈啦，一直到28街、30幾街，起碼有7、8個老人大廈喺呢度附近。仲有Arch嗰度啦，係咪都有好多？咁但係都唔明白點解咧24路車咧會喺禮拜尾週末咧係唔開去永活街嗰邊嘅。咁好似我哋最近咧咁多春宴，好多老人家都積極參與喎，但係冇人從唐人街可以搭車去到。咁我哋啲義工咧就要不停咁樣去即係答佢哋去啦。咁睇下呢個問題可唔可以解決？因為係一個唯一一條線路係可以俾呢啲老人家即係搭車嘅。另外一個44路咧就比較長時間㗎啦。就以前咧就係入唐人街嘅，即係由嗰陣時出嚟咧。就入唐人街嘅，而家咧就唔入唐人街啦，喺 Canal 咧又轉翻去Arch啦。咁點解要咁樣咧？咁喺嗰邊好多唐人同埋有好多長者住喺嗰度，佢哋係即係出入係非常唔方便嘅。就即係呢兩個問題就提下。另外仲有你翻嚟。
So this is one first thing, Nicole for helping with a lot of infrastructure improvements. She had lived on Hillock for 25 years, more than 25 years, and there had never been improvements with sidewalks being uneven and the roads being bumpy, but it's nice and smooth now, so thanks to the work of Nicole. She also said that she often brings constituents to the 11th Ward office, and thank you to the ladies, to Annie and Sharon and Zoe for all your help, and everybody has always been courteous and helpful. Her specific questions is on behalf of seniors about two buses, about the 24 bus and the 44. So 24 is a great bus that goes through many neighborhoods from the Oak on Dearborn and 9th Street roughly, all the way to Chinatown, going through going past many senior housing buildings, but it does not run on the weekends. And then she was saying that there are many seniors that go from other neighborhoods to Chinatown for evening events, particularly spring festival dinners that have been happening recently, and not having a 24 bus on the weekends is an inconvenience. And then now she's going to talk about the bus.
咁即係44路車如果能夠上翻嚟唐人街，咁你轉去邊度都冇所謂啦。總之就入到唐人街。咁唔使又再轉來轉去啦，即係咁啦，就呢個係一個問題。 另外咧，就我哋而家咧越嚟越多嘅退休人士長者咧，都好活躍出嚟參加我哋社區啲活動嘅。但係呢啲公園啊嗰啲咧，好似咧都唔係充分利用到咧，為我哋啲老人家咧可以好方便嘅去使用。咁我哋而家咧，甚至要用到我哋辦公室，等我哋啲職員放工啦，我哋用辦公室嚟提供俾啲長者咧，啲老友記咧嚟唱歌跳舞，即係咁睇下有冇budget或者有冇邊啲地方咧可以騰出一啲，譬如McGrath Park係有好多嗰啲體育館喺度啊，但係點樣先至能夠更加方便到俾我哋啲長者可以去 book 場啊，或者早上啲學生返晒學啊，可以俾我哋啲老人家多啲用啊，咁即係係咪可以即係安排得好一啲咧？即係咁樣嘅。咁仲有冇第啲問題啊？仲有，不如等我哋都想答咗呢幾個先好唔好？
So the next question was about the number 44 bus, which the Wallace bus used to come into Chinatown. Now it doesn't. It turns at Archer and Canal, I believe. And so whether we can bring the Wallace bus back into Chinatown for convenience, bringing folks from Bridgeport into Chinatown and vice versa. And then the last question was, there are many seniors that would like to use public facilities such as parks and park district facilities for recreation. So now, we're using places like the CBCAC office for singing and dancing after hours. Is it possible to have a more convenient way for senior citizens to use places like McGuane Parks, Fieldhouse, and so on for recreational activities such as singing, dancing, and other gatherings?
Okay, let's take a shot at this. Thank you so much, for your support and really for acknowledging the work that my staff and I have done since I've been in office. We have focused so much on making sure that we are a welcoming office for all residents in the ward, and it's really important to us that people feel comfortable and welcome and heard when they come in. We may not always be able to provide the exact solution that somebody wants, but we're committed to making sure that we're connecting you to the people that might be able to answer your question. A lot of people think I've got a lot more power than I actually have. I don't have a whole lot of money, I don't have a whole lot of power, but I know a lot of people, and I got a title that I know some people pay attention to, right? So I'm happy to use the office to do that. And it was really important to us from day one to make sure that when you walked into the 11th Ward office, that you saw people that reflected the community. So we have more Chinese speaking staff, both Cantonese and Mandarin. And that has, I feel like, made all the difference. We have a staff member that's not here with us today, but she's been there longer than me. And she noticed right away, after I was in office, especially after I got elected, that there was an uptick in people coming in and asking for services because they felt like they could. And that means the world to me. It means that what we're doing is working. So I'm glad we're doing it. So to your question about the CTA, and the buses, So it's really the first time I've heard this concern about the number 24 and the number 44. I remember when the 44 bus used to go all the way downtown. And I know that the difference that it would make to just make a right turn instead of a left on Archer to go into Chinatown and maybe come back around and like to get Cermak and then come back around, would probably make a big difference for especially our seniors to get to and from. I'm happy to take that to the CTA and see if we can ask them to revisit the route as well as revisit the hours of operation and the days of operation for the number 24. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Nicole,
Yes,
could you ask them to change the number 44 to another number?
I would love to change that number 44. Nobody likes the number 44. Maybe we should ask them to change it to 88. Okay. I'll ask that too. Thank you for the suggestion. That would be much better than 44. For those of you who are not Chinese, the number 4 literally translates to death. So it's actually a really like inauspicious number, so 44 is not really a lucky bus, so we want to love to change that. We're happy to go to CTA and talk to them about that. In fact, Sharon has had some success in rerouting buses in the ward, so maybe we'll throw a couple more challenges her way. And as far as using park spaces go, I will talk to the park district. We have the Chinatown, Kingtown Park Fieldhouse is, I think, the only park in the ward that has not seen a changeover in supervisors in this year. So it started at Taylor Lordson in Canaryville at the end of last year. We got a new park supervisor. We got a new park supervisor at McWayne Park just recently. And the park supervisor who's currently at Armour Square is retiring this week, as a matter of fact. So we'll be getting a new park supervisor there too. So I'm happy to go to the Chicago Park District staff to find out what we can do to designate and allocate some more space inside and outside, depending on the weather, for our Chinese seniors to have a gathering place to do more activities. So I will circle back with you on that. I'll work with Grace on that. And Grace, I would love, you coordinated something about a year ago. We should do this more often. I would love to come to CBCAC and meet our senior leaders where they are to hear about their concerns. You know, because we get a lot of information in that way. Again, we can't always fix a sidewalk right away or get something done quickly, but we're hearing all of it, and we've got things on the list, so give us time, because we don't always have all of the resources to get everything done at once. I'm so glad to hear that you live over there on Hillock. People were feeling very, very neglected over there for a long time. So, you know, the way we prioritize infrastructure improvements is to really look at how old requests are, how bad the street conditions are, and to get to the worst stuff first. So that we can create safer streets. Does anybody live on Lyman in the room? Anybody ride or bike or drive on Lyman? It's a really bad street. And just in 24th Place is a street that is slated to get repaved this season as well. 24th Place from Wentworth, I think all the way to Archer, actually. It's a terrible street. I can attest to it. I live on that street. And it's really bad, and my neighbors remind me of it. But it's part of the capital improvement program as well. But Lyman is a really long street. So, you know, I think it would cost something like $300,000 or $400,000 to repave the entire, the street in its entirety. So we're gonna be doing there is taking a look at how we can do this in phases. So unfortunately, it won't be done all at once, but we will chip away at it to repave it, not to chip the street. Was there one more question? Yep.
唔好意思啊，李區長，今日好開心真係見到你可以代表我哋啲居民啊，同你講咁多心里話，係啦。咁仲有一個咧就係而家唐人街咧，華商會做咗好多嘢咧，令到華商會咧係好繁，唔係唐人街咧係好繁榮嘅，特別係週末啊嗰啲。 但係一個問題咧，就泊車係跟唔上嘅。咁呢個問題咧，即係有冇可能向政府攞多啲分定啊？即係搞多個停車場啊，或者咧，我哋有啲朋友咧就提出喺唐人街附近住嗰啲咧要有 park permit 先至泊嗰啲咧，可唔可以某啲時段？ 係都可以讓俾啲遊客或者其他地方嚟嘅人泊下，即係唔係一日24小時，佢哋都有優惠，即係泊咗咁就我哋啲人就泊唔到啦，即係咁。呢個係一個問題。好啦，最後一個問題，你知道我講咩嘅，李區長？係我哋嘅狗狗公園從你
我唔記得 ，OK？
係啊，從你開。 投票我哋就要求呢件事。點解我特別再提出咧？因為最近喺我哋嗰個公園船公園嗰度附近發現有一群嘅狼個郊狼太高條我啲仔女話叫做係晚黑咧就特別就出嚟㗎啦，好得人驚㗎。我啲仔我先生都驚，因為佢唔知幾時會襲擊你咯，咁即係如果第一就向你哋反映，睇下有咩辦法 可以有冇得捉咗佢哋，或者將佢哋移去第度啊咁樣樣。另一方面咧，如果有個狗公園咧，我哋啲寵物主人咧就方便啲，就唔使咁夜先至出去。我哋點解要咁夜咧？偷嗰啲公園啊，即係俾小朋友玩嗰啲公園啊，冇人啊，夜晚將嗰度門鎖埋佢，然後放隻狗喺嗰度跑，所以就要咁夜都要出去咯，即係就係呢個問題啊！唔該晒，區長。
Absolutely, try to remember everything that Mrs. Wang said. So, two other questions. One is that Chinatown Chamber of Commerce has done a lot of great work bringing, a lot of business and, a lot of activities into Chinatown, particularly visitors. And, but that highlights the lack of parking in the neighborhood. So the question is, one, whether there could be more funding to add more parking, either parking structure or more parking spaces. And second, whether on the streets that have permit parking, whether the permit parking times can be restricted so that there could be some times where other people can park on the street, visitors and other folks that don't have the permit. And then the second question was about the dog park. Mrs. Wong had been advocating for a dog park for a long time. Apparently, right near Eleanor, Boat House, there are coyotes. So one, can something be done about catching the coyotes, and two, you know, keeping the dogs safe? And they, yeah, so the question in general is, you know, whether it is possible to get a dog park in the woods so that, dog owners can let their dogs run around.
I want to thank Mrs. Wong for asking all these great questions. She is a leader among her peers in the senior community. And she's been very active, and it's not a small thing to walk up to this microphone and ask any questions. And I think that's a sure sign that we're doing the right thing. And that people feel comfortable coming and asking questions. So thank you for holding us accountable for all of these things. And I've not forgotten about the dog park. You know, I think one of the biggest challenges with development in the ward of Chinatown and really wanting the business community to thrive, we are a fantastic tourist attraction. In fact, a couple weekends ago on a Friday night, I had dinner at Triple Crown. I was coming out, getting into my car pulled up right next to me. It was so crowded on the street. Car pulled up and rolled down their window, and I looked over, and it was Vice Mayor Walter Burnett and his wife. And he just looked over and he said, "Alderman, Chinatown's happened." And I said, "Yes, it is." I mean, and like, I think a lot of people don't understand how much traffic we are actually getting. And I will tell you that, you know, one of the biggest balancing acts for me is how do we balance improving and expanding the sort of tourism aspect of Chinatown without taking away from and having a negative impact on those of us who live in this community. You didn't mention the garbage on the streets on the weekends, right? I mean, I drive by and I can't unsee the overflowing trash bins with Thai ice cream and boba cups. They're everywhere. People don't clean them up, they bring rats. People don't do what they're supposed to, like they dump their household trash in these street cans. All of those things really chip away at the quality of life for the people that live in this community. So that's not lost on me. Parking, oh man, parking. I got a solution for that. If I won the lottery, I think I would build a big parking structure in Chinatown. You know, in as much as we're trying to be a more sort of transit oriented city, we have an amazing transit system in this city, and we know we have challenges with safety. And all of that like feeds into itself. And when people don't feel safe getting on public transportation like the red line, we get more cars on the street. And then we need more parking. So I think that to answer your question, is there a way for us to find more parking? I'm always looking for opportunities to maximize parking that we have in the community. As somebody who has residential parking on my street, we have time limits on them now. It's 8 AM to 8 PM. I hear you. So tell me about like what times of days are you looking for those hours to be changed? I'm open to the conversation, but the residents on those streets have also petitioned for those residential parking permits to be present on that street. I can only speak for my own lot. You know, we got residential permit parking because back when Castle was across the street, there was a challenge with parking there, and then we had a lot of restaurant folks who, you know, get picked up in the community at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and they don't come home till 10 o'clock at night. So when I get home at 6 or 7 o'clock from work, there's nowhere to park on the street, but when I wake up, there's all kinds of empty spots. So there's really not an easy answer to that, but I understand that while you have people visiting you, you want them to be able to park on these streets, so, I'll keep looking, but if you have suggestions or requests in terms of how to adjust some of these hours, I'm open to the conversation and open to talking to people on those blocks. The difficulty with residential permit parking is that if you don't have it everywhere, then it pushes the people who are seeking free parking to go to these other residential streets. And that's not always the best solution either. And the dog park, I'm sorry, I didn't want to forget about the dog park. I know that there's a coyote issue, and what the animal care control, Chicago Animal Care Control will tell you is to just leave them alone. They won't come out and catch them. Let's not go there right now. With animal care control, there are lots of challenges. They're doing the best they can. They've actually cut hours. They're short staffed, so the advice from animal care and control when it comes to coyotes is best just to leave them alone. I'll remind everybody that your dogs by law are supposed to be on their leashes unless you are in secured designated dog friendly area, which is a dog park. Which sadly we still do not have in the 11th ward. You know, it's challenging for us because we don't have a lot of available land. I am looking at a couple of locations still. The property that's right next door to the Eleanor Boathouse over there, that People's Gas Lot, I've told them that I'm interested in the city purchasing that property. But that's not for sale just yet. But I have made it clear that, you know, my desire, and I talked to Representative Ma about this as well, and we agreed we'd love to see that be an extension of that park, including a dog park. But that wouldn't be the only place that we're looking. So I haven't forgotten about you or anybody else who's on the Zoom or looks at this recording later. We have not stopped working on the dog park, but we're spinning a lot of plates right now, and that's still one of them.
Yeah, we're coming up to the last 20 minutes, so Qiming, your questions, and then I have 2 more questions that I think we need to post. Go ahead.
So I got 3 questions, so please bear with me. So.
You only get one, I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
It's here.
No, you can ask 2. She asked like 6, it's okay.
So a public restroom in Chinatown has been a long discussed issue, and I understand like maintaining costs has always been a concern, but now it has like the budget and more like resources. So is that like something that can be finally moved forward? Because it would make like really big difference to like, especially for the senior and like the family have like the gate and like the tourists. And the second one is like last month I helped my relative to apply my passport at Chinatown like post office. When they're right, and then my relative called me and the staff member told them like, why are you applying for American passport if you don't speak English? So that's really like great, especially in a place like Chinatown. Also like the post office often closed without notice, which is make things even more difficult for residents, and many people in Chinatown don't speak English well. So I was wondering what can be done like to ensure better service and like accessible for like the senior and like yeah.
What's your name again?
Chiming.
Qiming, thanks for the questions, Qiming. And if you have more, next, okay. Your first question was about public bathrooms. I think that is a challenge across this city, and in particular in a place like Chinatown, especially with the kind of tourism that we have here, and with things like Chicago Marathon that comes through. We simply don't have enough public bathrooms, and or public buildings that are open on the weekends. You know, so during the Chicago Marathon, you know, they have porta potties for the runners, but there are tens of thousands of people that come through the neighborhood to cheer on their loved ones. We had to send people to the fire station It's the only public building that was open. I don't think that the library was open. That's something that I think that the city needs to tackle on a more sort of broad basis. I've seen where in other cities, not necessarily here in the United States, but in Europe, where they have public bathrooms, just like on the street. It's very nicely, it's playable street furniture, decor. We haven't had that. This is a conversation also that, we talked to the Chinatown Chamber about too. It's not lost on me that we don't have these facilities. And I think that there's, it is a double-edged sword because, even if we did a temporary solution like porta johns, strategically placed in the neighborhood, those also attracts, other activity that isn't necessarily what bathrooms are for, whether that's drug use or others. So it's not a simple answer, but I think that, at a minimum, if we can try to coordinate better, having public spaces open, like the library, especially the library, to be open when we have larger scale events, that would help quite a bit. As far as the question about the post office, we hear all the complaints, just to be clear, the US Postal Service is a branch of the federal government. If Donald Trump has it his way, it's maybe gonna be a part of the Commerce Department, who knows right now. We've heard these complaints about the staff at the Chinatown branch, of the post office, and, it's not okay with us. Anybody being treated like that, it is completely 100% unacceptable. Someone's there to take your application, you're not there for judgment. Keep the comments to yourself. It's rude, it's obnoxious, and it's uncalled for. Especially in this community, where everybody's Chinese. It is not acceptable, and we have relayed those complaints. We actually have, we are in finally connection with the area supervisor, and we made them aware of the fact that the staff there for a very long time would just throw up a handwritten note saying, hey, we're closed. Come back at whenever, and then they still wouldn't open. My own staff member goes into the post office and stands there is waiting to be served, and she's not served because she's not standing the place that she was supposed to. Ridiculous. They're there to serve the public. And they were doing a really poor job of it. So I'm hoping things have improved more recently because we have finally been in contact with the supervisor. They're doing spot checks, or so we're told. They're going in at different times because that post office should never be closed during the day. Never, not once. So if you see that happening, take a picture and send it to our office. Call our office immediately. Because what we're doing is we're reaching out to the area manager, and then we're reaching out to our partners at the federal level, whether that is Senator Duckworth or Senator Durbin's office, or in this case, Congressman Danny Davis' office, because they deal directly with these federal agencies. You're welcome. And I'm sorry for the experience that people have had.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for all your questions and for all your attention. I have two other questions that was submitted online. As I said, there were actually more questions that were submitted online that we were not able to ask. So we will send the rest of the questions to the ward office and to Alderwoman Lee for written responses later. These two questions are, there's a suggestion for your newsletter that often uses images to convey information, and the images cannot be translated into different languages or to accommodate people who are deaf. So will your office work to make the newsletter accessible to folks in the disability community and for folks that need language accessibility? And then the second question is also about accessibility, is that we've noticed that there are damaged or missing audible crossing buttons and signs on 3 corners in Chinatown. There have been complaints that were already, or there have been reports that were already made to 311, but those have not been replaced or repaired. Wanted to have some follow-up on these.
Sure, thanks for the question. Yeah, we're not quite there with the newsletter yet. We're continuing to work on it. I appreciate the attention to letting us know where we have room for improvement. So we've got my commitment to working to ensure that we have ADA compliance, with that newsletter, doing a weekly newsletter is not a small lift for us. For those of you that get it, if we try to get it out by 8 AM every Sunday morning, it doesn't always work out that way because we're editing that pretty much right up until the time we're sending those out. So it does make things difficult from a translation perspective. So I beg some grace from everybody to give us a little bit more time to get that out, to translate it into Chinese. It's probably gonna be on a little bit more of a delay. But in you know, working with the mayor's office of people with disabilities, we'll work on getting that newsletter in a better condition for accessible to our neighbors who have disabilities. As far as the damaged or missing audible crossing buttons, I'd love to know where those are, because I don't know where they are. So I just wanted to be honest about that. We have not necessarily done an audit. Turmac and Weber. And so which corner is that? So on both sides, because this says 3 corners. Okay, so Wentworth, Turmac and Archer. Okay, Sharon, can you just make a note of that and let's talk to CDOT about what it's gonna take to get that done and how quickly that can be done? And we'll report back to folks. We just weren't aware of it, so my apologies, but we'll take it up with CDOT. If I've got the last word here, there were questions?
Yeah.
All right. Just because it's you, Eric.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Lee. So, I'm somebody, in my community who is very passionate about, promoting the culture, specifically at school, I run the Cantonese Language and Culture Club, and also the National Chinese Honor Society, and I was just wondering, because we're on the topic of the newsletter, whether it be possible to create a newsletter or if people could help in some way, to in your newsletter talk about things about Chinatown history or like about the 11th Ward in general, because I found that well, for me, I haven't really learned that much about the 11th Ward or like Chinatown history until I went to the museum myself last year. And so that includes like Raymond Lee or even people in the future about you. And so I was wondering whether or not it'd be possible to add something like that. The only time I've seen something like that is in the Chinatown Library. In some months, they have something that says like, the Black Heroes of Chinatown. And actually that's already been taken down, but I was wondering if there could be more opportunity to just like promote like culture in the 11th Ward, so like history or language, maybe add like a word of the week in your newsletter or something, in Cantonese, Khoisan, or Spanish or something. Yeah, I was just wondering if there could be an opportunity for that in the near
I'm
future.
here, volunteering?
Yes, I am volunteering. Awesome. For anybody else,
Love it.
yeah. Okay.
I just wanna have to like volunteer you, if I don't volunteer, volunteer me.
Okay.
I think the short answer is yes. It's a capacity issue for us. We're happy to leverage the newsletter as a channel to share stories about the culture and history of the people that make up this community.
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's an opportunity, for everybody across this really diverse, beautiful ward, to talk about their own history in this community.
Yeah.
So no, I think that would be great. Like, let's connect with Zoe. Let's figure out, let's get a content calendar going. You know, the key to this is really getting, not just you, we gotta get other people.
Everybody, yes.
We need people to submit story ideas. We can put a call out there. I'm happy to do that.
Oh, that sounds great, yeah. Thank you, Alderwoman Lee.
That was, Jacob, is there, what, okay. Okay, well, because it's you too, Jacob.
Okay, so I know that a lot of really good comments were made about public transportation in the neighborhood, and I was really happy to hear your answers. And for me, I reside in the west suburbs, which also has a very large Chinese community. And usually when I come here, what I do is I drive and then I park on one of the side streets that is west of the viaducts. And then I walk under the viaducts to come here to Chinatown, very cheap when it comes to parking. And so something I'm curious about is whether there are ideas or plans in the works to better connect Chinatown and the suburbs via public transportation so that there won't be as much issues with cars in the street in the neighborhood.
That's a great question. I don't know of any offhand, Jacob, but that's certainly something that I can bring up with the folks, on the RTA board.
Awesome. And yeah, that change Chinatown and DuPage County, particularly the Naperville area, I think would really be a good idea because so many people out here have ties to the Naperville area and vice versa.
Sure. Thank you, appreciate the question. Let's, like,
I think we are, yeah. Do you still have one question or?
Just one.
Okay, very last question. I know that we've said it 3 times, but this
the
time.
line is with you.
Yeah, so,
Come to the office and see me.
yeah, so like, I'm an art student, it's my first year.
What's your name?
Wei,
I'm Wei.
yeah, Wei Hong, yeah. I just started wondering, why Democrats put in legal, immigration, is it fair for people to come and stay legal? Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not,
Give it one more time so that the room hears you.
yeah, I'm not trying to be that aggressive, so I just want to know, like, why Democrats put legal immigration and they goes and trade all on it? Like, I said, fair for people who come here like legal because, they spend the time, they spend the money for applying to United States of America. That's it, it's appreciated.
What question to end on? Did everybody hear the question? His question was, why do the Democrats support illegal immigration?
Yeah.
Because other people spend a lot of resources to come in here the right way. And is that taking away? Did I capture that?
They're not broken the law.
They're not breaking the law.
Yeah.
I think I want to clarify something, that the immigrants that are here, by and large, are coming through legal means. They are not illegal. And really prefer not to refer to people as illegals. People are people, human beings, who for generations in this country have come to find, new opportunities. Chinatown would not be Chinatown, this country would not be this country without immigrants. Whether they came here. Legal is a fluid term at the end of the day, because what was legal previously could be changed today. I'm not gonna answer on behalf of the Democratic Party of the United States. I will answer for myself. Why I support, this city as a sanctuary city. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what sanctuary city means. Doesn't obligate us to spend dollars. It is about ensuring people's safety while they're here, so that their rights are protected, rights that are offered by the Constitution of the United States, by the way. I don't support people breaking the law, but it's not illegal to enter the country at a border when the United States government is allowing you to come in the country. It gave you an opportunity to. I think what we're referring to is the mass immigration, at the southern border, where not just people from South and Central America have been coming in, but from China as well. I want people to understand that this is not just about, South and Central Americans that have walked across countries and continents to get to the United States. It's about people who, are leaving China and other, countries around this globe that are coming to seek better opportunities here. And they may not have better opportunities under this administration. In fact, we've already seen what this administration is doing. And it's creating a lot of fear, and it's scooping up people who have perfectly legal rights to be here, who were born here in the United States with green cards through perfectly legal means. Where they're not breaking the law, where they're mistaken for somebody, and if you happen to be in the vicinity of something like this going on, this administration has said, you're just gonna be collateral damage. And frankly, that's not okay. But I hope I answered your question, so thank you for asking.
Yeah, I appreciate it for letting me look at nobody talking like that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, you're welcome. Listen, if more people would be willing to ask the questions that are on their minds, and we were able to sit in a room and have a conversation without judging people, everybody has different feelings about this. We can't want these things for just certain people in the world. We have to treat people as we want to be treated, that is the golden rule here. Well, it's more Christian based, but, we have an obligation to each other, and if we can't sit and have a conversation about why we feel one way and not, look, you were brave enough to ask that question. That's not an easy question to answer or to ask. So I appreciate that you brought the question forward. I laugh about it because that's not an easy question for someone like me to have to take and answer in a public forum. But I did that because we need to have more conversations like this. I'm not trying to hide the way I feel about this. Was it a big burden on us here in Chicago a couple of years ago? Like 350 people sleeping outside of our police district for months on end. And if the city hadn't taken the steps that it did at the time, which I voted for, to try to house as many of them as possible, we would have had thousands living on the streets. And then what would all of you be coming to me to complain about at the end of the day, when these people were bussed into our city by the governor of Texas? Sorry, I want this to turn into a big lecture. I appreciate the forum. Thank you, Grace and CBCAC, for organizing this town hall. I know it's the first since the pandemic. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. Know that our office and our staff are here for you. Please thank CBCAC and the staff for all that they do.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for being authentic and detailed about your answers. And if you have additional questions, you can submit them either through CBCC or directly to the 11th Ward office. I want to give a special shout out to the CBCC staff that have helped put this together, to Nate Chen from Chat who managed the translation system. And I think Tracy Kwan and Leighton Shu are on headphones translation somewhere in the next room. So thank you to everybody for helping make this seamless. We will have our next in-person town hall in June with Representative Teresa Ma, who will bring to us news from Spring. Thank you.